from the Strategic Day Trader, and I got a special presentation for you today. I got the idea for this presentation from a webinar I held earlier in the week, in which, from talking to people in the webinar, the most common issue that came up was just having confidence as a trader. So I wanted to kind of put this together. Kind of reflect on this, also, share some of the experiences I've had with some of my one-on-one coaching clients, because it is an issue that I've seen come up quite a bit, even for ones who are very good chart readers, is having confidence each and every day to come in and take your trades. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. The things that you're doing that you may not fully realize that are destroying your confidence, as well as things that you should be doing to really reinforce and build the right type of confidence. Now, I'm putting this very cheesy quote here because that's where we want to get you to be able to say this each and every morning, as I do, this cheesy quote, and 100% believe in it. And even on the days where you maybe are not really fully 100% behind it, right? Okay, so then what is the issue? Is it trading related? Is there something else going on, right? But what we should be able to say each and every day is that I'm the best trader I've ever been, and I am more prepared and more experienced than I've ever been. Okay, we should be able to say that every morning, right? Okay, so if that's not the case, right, then maybe we need to figure out what's kind of holding you back, okay? Because even when you get all the work in, the strategies, the patterns, if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be able to execute accordingly. Okay. So for a lot of traders, okay, when confidence comes and when confidence leaves, it's all about when the trade works and when it doesn't work. Okay. That when the trade works, you feel like a genius. And then when the trade doesn't work, you feel like you must have done something wrong to deserve it. Okay. And so it's this constant back and forth, right? Of, I must have done everything right, and I read it all right, and that's why it worked so good. And then, when you get one or even two consecutive losses, you think, I have to start all over, right? I don't really know what I'm doing. This market is too hard, or whatever kind of issues. And that's not the way it should be, right? Now, if you're kind of in the market, kind of for the thrill of the gains and losses, right, then I guess you are in a way getting what you're after. But if what we're after is consistency day in, day out, to have the right mentality, right, then we can't be operating in between these, or from extreme to extreme. Okay, now we are going to feel something with every winner and every loser. I'm not saying that we can completely remove or detach ourselves from it, but that shouldn't be the overriding criteria for whether we're confident or not confident as traders. Okay, so here we're going to talk about the very first thing that leads traders to kind of destroy their confidence, and that's taking random entries, being too impulsive. Okay, so give me a comment here if we come across some of these quotes, which I've heard from a lot of traders from times when they take trades, they don't really remember why they took them, right? Let me know in the comments if this sounds like you at all, which one sounds the most like you. And maybe this won't be the action that is really holding you back, right? But just keep a lookout for if any of these kind of echo your thought process throughout the day, right? You jump into something because you just think, well, it's going to go higher. You don't really have a strategy. You don't have an entry. Maybe you saw some news go across the ticker or something, right? And you just wanted to jump in. And you jump in, and then it doesn't end up working. And you don't even remember, why did I take this in the first place? I just kind of felt like doing it. I just kind of thought, well, if it works, it'll be really great. And I don't want to miss out if it does. And so you're so focused on where the target's going to be, you don't think about, where should my stop go? Right? Or sometimes you trade yourself into this frenzy where you tried to play something long, it doesn't work, so you think it must be a short, right? And so then you go the other way. and you short it. And then you look at your P&L at the end of the day and you wonder, how did I lose money playing the same thing long and short? Seems almost impossible, but somehow, right, you did it. So it's that impulsivity of jumping into things, trying to chase things, right, without knowing what your strategy or entry, or letting the strategy and entry set up. I know plenty of traders who know the entries, who know the patterns, right? But sometimes they just can't help but hit the button early or jump in even though they know it's not ready yet, okay? And that's the kind of thing that makes it hard for you to make adjustments, okay? Because if you did something because maybe you feel a certain way. I see this kind of comment all the time. I feel like it's going to go higher, right? As opposed to, it's been consolidating, it's a nice pro gap, or it fits my strategy, right? Or it's a transition A and it's setting up a breakout, right? Those are kind of based on the chart, the actual information that's in front of you. If you just take action based on something that you feel or kind of an intuition and it doesn't work, how are you going to improve? What are you going to do differently tomorrow? Because you can't be the different person tomorrow, right? So that's different than saying, okay, right now, breakdowns, mid-level breakdowns aren't working that well. And now I know that, and going into tomorrow, I'm not going to take anymore until I see them work really well, right? You can actually make adjustments. If you're just doing things based on your feelings or you got a hot tip from there, who are you to blame when it doesn't work? How are you going to make an adjustment, right? So going into tomorrow, you don't really know, how do I make yesterday better than today? Okay, so that's the first one. You really got to make sure that the things that you're doing are well defined, not doing random stuff, not just kind of chasing or falling in constantly into things just because you think, oh, it might go higher, so I'm going to go long. Or if that falls, I want to make sure I'm a part of it when it falls. Okay? All right. And then the second one. Okay, I said this in the webinar earlier in the week. This is the one that I've seen end trading careers more than any other kind of issue: ignoring stops and losses. Okay, so hopefully this doesn't sound like any of these kind of thoughts, right? But, sometimes people just don't want to admit that they were wrong, admit that the play isn't going to work. So I'll just give it more room. It's one of the reasons that I don't recommend people use psychological stops, that it's like, oh, if it comes into this area, then I'll try to trail it or take my stop, because it does put you in a situation where you could make the wrong call. Now, if you have your stop automatically in the system, it's kind of taken out of your hands. And then if you need to replay it because it sets up again or whatever, you can always replay it. Because that's the fear, right? That's why people don't want to put in a hard stop, because they think it'll get hit and then reverse back in the direction that they expected it to, right? So if you use a psychological stop, you do put yourself in the position to kind of think this way, that, oh, maybe I just needs a little bit more room. And then it keeps going against you. Maybe it needs a little bit more room. Keeps going against you. Oh, well, now it's too late. It's way too far gone. I probably should have taken it earlier when it was just the initial loss, and now it's a much bigger loss. And you maybe try to ignore it or whatever. And then at the end of the day, it's just been going against you all day. And you think, okay, well, maybe it'll go up tomorrow. Or maybe I'll be able to get out of it tomorrow. And this can be very, very devastating to your confidence. Not just because of the loss, but because you don't know if you can trust yourself. If you're in the same situation tomorrow, right, even if you tell yourself, oh, I know I should take it when it takes out my stop, I should get out. But then that other kind of voice in your head starts to creep in, well, I'm probably not going to take 2 losses in a row. It'll probably come back. Or 3 losses in a row, right? And you start to justify why you shouldn't take your stop, why you can just kind of, maybe it'll come back. You start to hope that it'll come back, right? And then you look back on these actions after they happen over and over again. You say, why can't I stop doing this, right? Is this why I'm not meant to be a successful trader, right? And so just in the same way that jumping into a play before without a setup or strategy, right, kind of puts you at fault, and only you at fault, is the same thing as when you don't take your stops, right? You only have yourself to blame, right? And so you don't know if going into the next day, am I going to do the right thing? Okay. All right. So it is important that we kind of cut those out first. That's why I wanted to start and just, think about, do those kind of justifications for doing what you know is wrong, are those things what's holding you back? Are you having those kind of similar thoughts, right? And then we need to start kind of reframing things, okay? And so, like I said, I've worked with a lot of traders, some really good at reading the charts, but still struggle with having the right mindset, okay? So let's talk about a couple things that we do each and every day, right, to reinforce our confidence. Knowing and executing your plan. Okay, so this is the kind of things that you should be thinking or saying to yourself, right? Is the setup looks good, but hasn't traded enough volume. It's too thin, right? Or maybe it's too spready. Okay, so I want to play it. It's too thin and spready, right? For what my requirement is at the moment. And so I can't play it. I have to pass. And that's one of those things that builds confidence, right? And it's easily taken for granted. Passing on a play and having it not work does a lot for your confidence because you remember why you have that plan in the first place. Now, let's say you pass on the play and it works really well. Okay, fine. Then maybe you need to reevaluate what your restrictions are as far as volume. Maybe you're good at identifying plays that are a little bit on the thin side but are going to work really well, or you're good at managing spread. You can always make that adjustment, right? So, and the difference between taking something that is not within your plan, that you know is maybe too aggressive or too wild, and then having it not work, right? That's the thing that's going to put you in a really tough spot mentally, right? And destroy your confidence, okay? And in the same way, taking a play that's a good setup that you know is in your plan, okay? Now, if you're in the room with me, right, you take trades with me, you know that sometimes that's the case where, I'm like, it is maybe pretty close to lunchtime, or it's in the second half of the day, or for whatever reason, maybe I'm not as aggressive feeling. But I say, but I don't have a reason not to take this. This is a good gap. It's got a good setup. So I have to take it. You'll hear that from me, right? And that's the same thing as knowing and executing your plan. Just like passing on things that don't fit your plan, but you have to take the things that do fit your plan, right? Now, you can always make adjustments. Again, you start to take some plays, you see that certain setups aren't working as well, you can always make that adjustment, right? And so you can see how by doing that, by knowing what's in your plan, identifying what your strategies and entries are, it's not all just about you. So if I say, okay, breakouts, high of the day base breakouts aren't working as well anymore, right? I can make that adjustment and say, okay, I'm not going to play as many base breakouts, as opposed to coming into tomorrow and saying, oh, I'm going to, just try to do things differently. Hopefully my feelings or my intuition, right, are going to lead me in the right direction, right? So I'm separating my self-worth from those trades. So that allows me to make adjustments, come into the next day, right, with this new information, okay? And just know that your trading plan doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, okay? So especially as the market changes, you're going to have to make changes. There's no point at which you come across the 100% perfect trading plan, and that's going to get you through however many years you decide your trading career is going to be. Okay, so it's always going to be changing, always going to be looking for more, for adjustments, improvements, and new strategies, new entries, right? And so knowing, executing your plan, all right, does a lot for building your confidence. This, number 2, tracking your trades, I think is the most important, okay, as far as building confidence. You remember that quote in the beginning, right? I'm as prepared and experienced as I've ever been. Okay, where does the preparedness comes from, right? It's from tracking your trades, know what's working the best. Where does the experience come from, right? It's not just, oh, every loss automatically makes me a better trader because I learned from it or I'm paying my education or whatever, right? We have to learn from it and learn from it in a way that is objective. Okay, so you once you start to track your trades consistently, you'll stop taking the random entries because you'll hold yourself accountable at the end of the day. Because you'll come across this play and you say, okay, well, this looks higher, but what entry is this? How do I log this? Oh, it doesn't have an entry. Okay, then I shouldn't play it, right? Right. So knowing what you can play, what you're tracking, is going to help also keep you in line and do less random stuff. Okay. Now you can always start to track new things. If you say, well, I've been noticing this play or this kind of setup is really working. Okay. Start to track it, see how well it's working, test your management on those plays. You can track that, create a separate tracking sheet just for those plays so you can come up with the information. Okay. All right. And so a lot of times too, we know what's working, but maybe on that day you're not feeling as aggressive. But knowing what's working gives you the confidence to take the play. Okay? All right. So it allows you to focus on what strategies are working the best. If you have a good tracking sheet, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But if you have a good tracking sheet, it should tell you what timeframes, what strategies, what entries are working the best for you. Okay? And allow you to make adjustments, right? The right adjustments. I think it's easy to be reactionary. You had this play, it looked really good, and then it didn't work. And it's easy for maybe that disappointment in that play that you thought looked perfect to override the other times that similar play, that similar setup worked out really well. And so even if, let's say that play works 2 out of 3 times, but that one play out of those 3 that didn't work makes you not want to take it the next time, and then that play works out really well. Well, I mean, you should have known, right? That odds are that play was going to work, but you're just so impacted, you're so biased towards that last play, right, that you're not looking at things objectively, right? So that's why tracking is so important. It gives you the confidence, this is where I should focus, as much as this is also where I should stop doing, right? If you feel like that last play that didn't work, yeah, that strategy is not working anymore, go ahead, look at your tracking sheet. How about in the last ones that were that strategy, either long or short, and with that entry pattern, maybe they haven't been working. So now you can say, well, I'm going to stop taking them until I see and it proved to me that it's actually going to start working. Okay? So those are the things that will help us build confidence. Now you notice that I'm not focused on take plays that work and don't take plays that don't work. Because we have to be confident in what we can control. Okay? If you take a play, you can't control, at least for most of us, if you trade whatever, normal size, you're not an institution, you can't control that it's going to go up to your target. Okay? So you can take the entry, you can take the stop, you can take the exit when it gets to target. Okay? There are things that you can control, and we have to be confident in the things that we can control, because there is so much of what we do as professional speculators that is uncertain. Okay? So whether you take the trade and whether you take a trade that fits with your strategy and your entries, that is 100% within your control. Managing the trade according to your management plan, that is within your control. And then making adjustments based on your tracking results is within your control. Okay? And a lot of this, right, is a reminder that you're thinking long term. Because I think it's easy when you don't really have a trading plan or you're not really tracking your trades to treat every day as its own little event. Almost like every day is like a do or die, its own little capsule. And so you think, well, I just want the winner for today. even if that strategy only works 1 out of 5 times, as long as you got that one thing for that day, right? You think, okay, today's a victory. I'll go into tomorrow, right? It'll be a different thing. But, right, if we're really trying to achieve consistency long term, then we should also be thinking long term, okay? And it's not really, natural for us, especially when we first come to the markets. We think we just want to make as much money as quickly as we can, right? And that mentality is really going to hold you back, okay? And keep us from doing the things that we're supposed to. Now, the things in here that I'm focusing on are what we can do outside of actually reading the charts correctly. I'm assuming that you know what your strategies and your entries are. Okay, now if you don't have a strategy, or you don't have well-defined strategy, you don't know what your entries are, then kind of that's a different issue. I'm assuming that you kind of have that all in place, that you have a trading plan. Okay, if you don't have a trading plan and you don't have a tracking sheet, okay, there's a link in this description to the turnaround formula course, okay, that I created, that tells you how to write a trading plan, gives you what's in my trading plan, the strategies, the entries, and then gives you a copy, an example sheet, and a blank sheet of a tracking sheet. Okay, so that takes care of all the other stuff in here. Okay, the focus of this was for those of you that have your plan, have your tracking sheet, but still on a day-to-day basis are just not quite sure, that you're going to be able to execute. Okay, which I understand. I understand it. For, early in my career, even as it started to be consistently profitable, there is that little bit of doubt that I was thinking, am I just getting is it just a string of luck? Or is this really working? Am I on the path to consistent profitability? Right? And so it was reinforcing those actions that I outlined in the second half of this presentation, right? Which got me to the point where I can come in and say each and every morning, I'm as good a trader as I've ever been. I'm as experienced and as prepared as I've ever been. Okay, and that is important to establish that mindset and truly believe it each and every day in order to execute your trading plan. Okay? All right, so I hope that helps some of you who are maybe just need a little bit of a boost in this area, or kind of a reframing of how to establish yourself and within your trading. Okay. There's also a link in the description about bad habits. So if you want to watch a replay of the webinar from earlier in the week where we talk about 4 bad habits and what we can do to eliminate them or at least mitigate their impact on our trading, definitely check that out. Okay. All right, so that is going to do it for this. I know it's a very, very common issue amongst traders. I've dealt with it myself. And like I said, this cheesy quote is something that I do as kind of just an assessment for me each and every day. Do I feel like I've done what I'm supposed to? Am I prepared? Am I ready to go? Right? And so hopefully you don't see too much of yourself in that front half. But if you do, now you know kind of which actions are really keeping you from being confident as a trader. Okay? All right, so that's going to do it. Hope to see you in the trading room if you're in the trading room with us. Otherwise, hopefully for those of you, YouTube, Facebook, there was something here that you can apply to your trading. And good luck in the coming weeks.